A lot of people have chimed in when we did Super Bowl stuff and asked, why don't you give your own list? So now I'm going to do that certain thing. So here we go. The best Olympians of all time in the Winter Games. So we start with number 5, Dan Jansen. He competed in the Lillehammer Games in Norway in 1994, but here's the thing. He absolutely trained his ass off like many other Olympians as they do until they get to the Olympic Village and have some certain sexy time, including off Tinder. But here's the thing about Dan Jansen. The road that he took to finally winning gold is astounding and one that should be told. So here we go. Not only training his ass off, he failed to medal in 1984. That was his first Olympics. In 88, 4 years later in Calgary, he was the gold medal favorite. His sister dies. She had leukemia. He could not be there. He talked on the phone with her, and she could barely speak. At this point, she could barely lift her head up off the pillow in the hospital. And when she said, "I love you," to him, that's when he realized this is probably going to be the last time I talk to her. His sister dies. He fell in the 500 meter. 3 days later, the 1,000 meter, he also failed, unfortunately. Out of the 11 Jansen kids, him and his sister Jane were the closest. Jane was also a speed skater. A bone marrow transplant failed, and unfortunately, as we indicated previously, she died. In the 92 Albertville Games in France, he failed to medal once again, finishing 4th in 26. The Lillehammer Games is where it all turned around for Dan Jansen and created one of the finest moments we've ever seen in Olympics history. He fell in the 500 meter, finishing 8th. The 1,000 meter, his final chance to medal. And all this time, we all knew his skills. We all knew what he could do. The question was, could he finally medal? Here's what happened. 96 Lillehammer Games. He finishes gold for the 1,000 meters. You see the triumph in his face. You hear the roar of the crowd cheering this man on through all the adversity that he's been dealt with his sister and whatnot. And then, and again, one of the finest moments we've ever seen, he skates with his daughter Jane, who's incredibly young, as you see in the picture. And he named his daughter Jane after his sister. Jane, by the way, now is 20 years old and in college. A fine moment. Number 4, Bonnie Blair, possibly one of the most decorated Olympians, American Olympians of all time, also competing in the 94 Lillehammer Games, a speed skater, the 500-meter speed skater. She began her career in 1984, and she went up against Krista Rothenberger. What you need to know about her is that she set the world record. Bonnie Blair beat her world record. In what time exactly? In an interview that she did with one of the American YouTube channels, she basically told the story about how she beat her, and not only that, this is how quickly it was in this time. She beat Rothenberger by 2/100ths of a second. Amazing. Snap of the fingers. In 1988 in Calgary, she won the gold in the 500 meter in a world record time of 39.1. She won the women's 500 for the 3rd time at the Lillehammer Games. Jansen told her, basically speaking of her, she's a fierce competitor and very confident. In the 1,000 meter, she started to get a cold. She ended up being sick for 2 weeks, but she won once again. 6-time Olympic medalist, 5 gold, 1 bronze in 4 Olympics. This is certainly, and I know that I may have deceived you before, but this is the most celebrated American Olympian of all time. If you've not heard of Eric Heiden, now you certainly will. Not only did he medal like crazy, but he won 5 gold in 1 Olympic Games. Unheard of, never happened before, never happened again. Eric Heiden. So the Winter Olympics were the Lake Placid Games in 1980. He was favored to win. He competed in the 500 meter, the 1,000 meter, the 1,500 meter, the 5,000 meter, and the 10,000 meter. He beat the world record in the 10,000 meter, his last event, by more than 6 seconds. By the way, before that 10,000 meter, fun fact, funny tale, he was up celebrating the 1980 Miracle on Ice team. So he's up celebrating. He told the story to one American YouTube channel, basically saying he was up that night. He slept through his alarm. The coach comes 90 minutes, about 90 minutes to 2 hours before he's set to compete, knocks on his door like crazy. He's like, dude, wake up. You got to go. 10,000 meter, win the gold. Let's go. And he's like, all right, let's do it. He goes out and he wins gold. And not only that, he beats the world record by more than 6 seconds. Amazing. 4 world records, 5 golds in 1 Olympic Games. Eric Heiden, a name you certainly should remember. Number 2 is what they call the Forgotten Miracle Team. Why exactly are they called that? Well, the 1960 United States men's hockey team competed against some of the top opponents and countries in the world. Now, there was a lot going on politically, and they certainly inherited those problems, though they sort of were just like, dude, we're here to play hockey. I understand what's going on, but, let's get down to business. So here's what happened. They ranked outside of the top 4. The top 4 were Sweden, the Soviets, the Czechs, and Canada. They won all 7 games in the Olympics. They beat the Czechs firstly, 9-4. The Cold War was going on, a lot of political issues. They beat the Soviets 3-2, who were a talented, bigger, and stronger bunch, and they brought this different sort of aggressive style that a lot of that 1960 team states in their documentary. Like, these guys shaped the landscape and changed the landscape for Olympic hockey. There were no masks at this time, by the way. And in the final, they beat Canada. Now, this is the first time the Americans won a gold medal in Olympic hockey, and the Canadians were just as dominant as the Americans. The Americans were not favored to win this game, and not only that, there was so much discord happening with the 1960 Olympic men's team, because there were some guys like Herb Brooks, who coached the 1980 Miracle on Ice team. He was cut a week before the Olympics. There were friends that they had, and then they were replaced by other people. There was discord, and one guy in the documentary even says, look, man, it doesn't matter what you and I are going through right now and how much we dislike each other. When we're on the ice, you pass the puck to me and I pass the puck to you. And that's the sort of mentality that they have. Unfortunately, they were one of them was quoted as saying that they had quiet pride. And unfortunately, they were just sort of forgotten. They were underappreciated. And maybe the reason that they were forgotten is because of number 1 on this list. And that is, of course, the Miracle on Ice team in 1980. So this was a team, again, Herb Brooks, who was cut 1 week before competing in the Olympics in 1960, rallied the team together in 1980. These were college kids, man. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. I mean, these kids, it was like a larger-than-life sort of atmosphere and a sort of situation. They're going up against the Canadians, they're going up against all these tremendous teams and whatnot. And the Soviets just invaded Afghanistan. American flags were being burned like crazy. And the Soviets, heavy favorites to win the gold. Heavy favorites. And the team, again, the average age, 21 years old. 1 week prior to the Olympics, the Soviets absolutely manhandled the United States, winning 10-3 at Madison Square Garden. So that's already in the back of their minds. Now, here's the interesting thing. In that game, where the Americans played the Soviets, Jim Craig was stellar in net for the Americans. But after the first period, it was a kind of a weak goal that was let up by the Soviet netminder, and they pulled him. And in the second period, out of nowhere, the Americans see this and they're like what is going on with the Soviets? They're this powerful team. They're a dominant team and whatnot. And yet they're pulling their goaltender because he let up kind of a softie? And the Americans thought they're obviously a little nervous. They're obviously a little pressing. They've never really been in this situation before because they were a dominant bunch, were the Soviets. And from then on, the Americans did not necessarily dominate, but they did go out on top. And here's why. They upset the Soviets 4-3 because in the third period, Mike Eruzione, the captain, scored with 10 minutes left. And then even in this documentary, the Miracle on Ice documentary, that's a movie, but a different documentary on the Miracle team. He said, I went out for a shift, I went back, there was like 10 minutes left, I look up, it's 9:59. Like the clock wouldn't move, it wouldn't move. But you hear, you should absolutely YouTube it. You feel this sense of emotion. You feel it in the crowd. It's such an intense atmosphere. You hear them count down from 5, and you hear Al Michaels go crazy on the broadcast. The finest Olympic moment of all time, and one that should be treasured and remembered. All of these should, but absolutely the top 2 in particular should absolutely be remembered for years to come, and everyone should tell their kids about these fine Olympic moments. Are there any that I left off? Are there any that you recommend? Thoughts? Comments section below. And also do me a favor, subscribe to TYTSports.